Jessica, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Super excited to be here.
I kind of want to launch straight in with the idea of the entrepreneurial casino because I just finished reading a book, and the way you describe the casino is so relevant to also where I am right now. Like this, stealing this like multi-billion-dollar industry that is kind of selling the dream of an entrepreneurialism and like doing business online, and it's so easy and follow my course and blah blah blah. What was a moment where you were like, "Oh no, I'm in a casino"?
So I was in the entrepreneurial casino for kind of a while before I realized what it was. So a little bit of backstory. So I hit a wall in corporate in 2015 and I said, I don't want to do this anymore. So then I went on the long circuitous route to finding what I wanted to do. So I thought I wanted to become a holistic nutritionist. And then I wanted to become a life coach. And I got the certifications and I was still working in corporate at that time. And then when I got my coaching certification, I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, where I live now. And I started being like, I want to be a coach. Okay. This was 2018. So this was like right about the time where everyone was still, you can sell a course with your list. So I bought one of those programs, like how to sell a course to your email list. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I don't have an email list. I'm side hustling as a coach. I took a couple of business building programs and the first one was great. It actually really was great. The second one was kind of like a regurgitation of the first one. Then the more then I leapt out in 2021. I was like, okay, I can't actually side hustle my way to this because of what I want to do and how intense my job was at the time. So I went all in and then I took another business building program that was kind of similar. And I'm like, wait. Okay, like I'm not learning anything new here. But I kept, there was another course and another program. And I come from, a business background. I like to learn. And I'm like, okay, well, what are these people teaching me? And then I get into this program where I have had some modicum of success, right? Like, not from what they're teaching me about growing social media and growing email lists and stuff like that. I grew and got my first clients old school networking, like contract consulting gigs, kind of like the way that I was shown to do it in, how McKinsey and Company did it, because that's my background too. And then I get into this, like, it was like an ethical feminist business owner. And she's teaching these things. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're making multiple six figures from this program and everyone else is not making money. What the hell is going on here? And that was at the time where it was kind of like the end of the boss babe era where everyone was like, you know, we should all be millionaires and you need to make these moves and you need to hire these people. If you are the VA, if you don't have a VA, you are the VA, you should hire your first time full-time employee. And I'm looking at the math being like, this doesn't work. What the hell is going on? And then after I dropped some serious coin on a bunch of things, I woke up, I was like, oh, yeah, they're selling. Took enough of these courses where I'm like, they're selling you the dream and it's just repackaged garbage, which worked 5 years ago. Doesn't work anymore. And that's when I realized I've been taken for a ride.
It's like an MLM, like all the way down. It's like coaches teaching coaches how to coach, or
Oh,
how
yeah.
to get a following, or it's basically get rich by buying my course, how to get rich, all the way down the pyramid.
Yeah. Now it's so funny. It's like, I now recognize that my business is teaching business skills, which means that there's like some ethical guilt around like my business is teaching people how to business. So I am not a part of the casino, but I am definitely selling business education, which versus actually doing the service, which is casino adjacent. I like to think I'm teaching good things. It's grounded in it's all the shit that no one's telling you, but also like I recognize that I'm selling you a shovel instead of, being out there and searching for gold as well. I've done both, right? But I recognize that now I am part of the educational complex, even though I'm out of the casino.
I guess the difference as well, though, at least for me, because I just read your book, I feel like the difference is that like spotting the casino is spotting the fact that the main thing is the selling, like the dream part, right? They're saying, if you buy this course for 5,000 euros or whatever, then you will finally unlock some special thing that will help you also make this much money. Whereas when I read your book, I was almost like shell shocked, but also relieved at the same time. Because the relief was like, oh, I don't have to do that. But then reading, I'm like, oh, but this is a lot of work.
Yes. If I convince some people to be like, maybe, like I don't like my job, but it's not so bad. I never want anyone to be in a toxic environment, but I do want people to recognize that you can build a business and it requires much more commitment and dedication than what you're being sold. Is it possible? 100%. Does it require doing uncomfortable things that are going to stretch you for significantly longer than you think and being willing to kind of like figure out how to get paid while you're doing the uncomfortable work, right? So, like, you know, that is not a particularly sexy message. It doesn't go viral at all, which is why I'm glad that the right people who are finding it are spreading the word because this is not like 10 steps to your millions. This is the 5-year arc of building something sustainable that still pays me less than my old corporate salary.
It's like figuring out the long path, like the eventual path to getting where you want to be rather than the quick, 10-day turnaround or even 1 year turnaround then.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Reading the book as well. And also it's funny because like I am someone who has a day job, did the same thing as you where I'm like, well, I do enjoy coaching. That's part of my day job. I actually enjoy that. I went and got a coaching qualification. I did a bit of coaching with people on the side. And then I was like, well, now I've kind of tapped out in terms of like the people in my network who I know. Maybe I want to grow this more. What should I do? And like, okay, well, like it feels like the logical conclusion is always, well, I should start posting on social media every day. And even reading your book, it still feels like, well, what am I supposed to do otherwise, right? It's still so tempting to be like, well, obviously I should be posting everywhere all the time. Like, what else am I supposed to do?
Yeah. So in the pre-2020, social media was a discovery tool. It was designed, you had followers. I actually just was talking about this on my podcast this morning. It was in the pre-TikTok era. Pre-TikTok, the whole goal was the social graph. And you did see things from people that your friends followed. Like it served you up adjacencies. LinkedIn still does that somewhat. So it actually did work. It was less saturated, less people were creating content. It wasn't so professionalized. Social media was an incredible way to find other like-minded people and expand your network. Social media stopped being social primarily when TikTok entered the scene. And now social media is passive content. And it's actually unless used well and intentionally, it's a poor networking tool. So now we have to go back to saying like, okay, if social media is basically like TV on our phones at this point, the way we go meet people is the way we used to go meet people, which is like joining communities, joining programs. It's like what realtors call belly to belly marketing is like, you got to go door to door, which is actually why it's harder. You might have to go, I say this with love, put on real pants and leave the house. But also you don't have to do that, right? Like I don't do a lot in local networking anymore, but I'm in like 15 different communities at a given time. And people are like, how do you keep track? And I'm like, well, I don't spend any time I spend very, very little time on social media when I'm on Substack. I'm not just like posting things. I'm responding to comments. I'm sharing things. I'm like, signaling through those things. But you have to say, I'm intentionally putting myself in a reason to expand my network. Do you remember how you heard about the book? I'm just curious.
I guess like many people recently, I'm pretty sure it was Paul Miller posting about it somewhere, either in his WhatsApp group or on Substack.
So Paul is like the perfect example. So 5 years ago when I started, I was looking for so this is when like I think I found someone who was talking about I was on Twitter at that point in time and I was like I'm going to find people who have left corporate to do something. So I started following Paul. And then I started kind of following some of Paul's friends. And then I bought Paul's book. And then I responded to his post. And then it turns out that he was going to the World Domination Summit in Portland, Oregon, and I was going to that too. So I made a point to like, sounds like super stalky, but not really, but like track him down and have a conversation. And then I started sharing his book with people. And he was actually the one that hooked me up with a consulting firm for my very first project that got me paid. I don't know if he knows that, but like he made an introduction to me and that person gave me my first consulting project. And 5 years later, you now heard about my book from Paul through social media. But like now we stayed in touch through social, but those relationships didn't start there. And I think that's where like social media, fantastic way to find, if you are intentionally searching for people, a fantastic way to like find the others. It's harder now. It was much easier back in 2020, 2021. But then also I do what I call the puppy dog internet theory, which is where you find people you like and then you literally follow them around the internet like a puppy dog. And it's like, oh, these are the communities they're joining. These are the people they know. These are the people they know. These are the places they spend time. You go support these people. And then you start creating like your 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon map by basically being like, oh, these are people that have gone ahead. Where do they spend time? Who do they socialize with? Let's go make friends there. And then let's go expand your ecosystem. That all happened online, but it happened by using social media as a networking tool, but not as a content creation posting tool.
So it's like you use the network to find people who are interesting and then intentionally find ways to connect with them, hopefully in a nice way, not in a creepy way. And then you see where that goes without really having any expectation that 5 years later, that person's going to promote your book and it's going to do really well.
Yeah, pretty much. And so it's like, this is like, it's the long game of like compounding. Like someone is interested in one of my programs right now, and it's because someone introduced them to my work. And person was introduced to my work by someone else who joined my program a year ago. And that person joined my program a year after she first heard about me because someone else did. So like, it takes like, multiple years for your reputation to spread. And so your job is to be like, how can I figure out how to make money and stay consistent long enough to stay in the game until the flywheel starts working on your behalf? And for me, it took a year to figure out how to make money. It took me 3 years until I was making money under my own book of business consistently, and 5 years before I'm like, "Oh, there's momentum here." And now it's like people are finding me that I don't have to do so much heavy lifting for because my body of work is substantive enough to do that. I got lucky that it only took me 5 years. I got lucky. I published a book in my first 5 years, right? And that was not a cheap endeavor. I have been writing a blog post. I've been doing a podcast. I have a YouTube channel. But like I say I got lucky because I found something that like gripped my soul and, basically like ran it down as it were. And I managed to turn my business from like exclusively high ticket, high touch, fractional chief operating officer work to a half and half mix of consulting, like advisory consulting, but also leveraged offers. And 5 years is short for that. No one talks about that either. It's like 5 years to have like authority assets that start to travel beyond you. 5 years is short.
This really interesting comparison recently. Actually was comparing building a business to having a wine company. Like if you want to produce really good wine, obviously you can't just start selling wine that you're going to sell in like 10 years time as it's matured. As a company, you probably need to have an offer that you can give within like a short-term offer, right? Like maybe you want to have a wine that you can sell 6 months in rather than like 4 years in. But like it's not like you're going to put all your passion into that thing that you're offering after 6 months. Like your true passion might be the thing that you want to start selling after 5 or 10 years or however long it takes wine to mature. I don't know. But it kind of like sat in my mind because it does feel like somehow, like if you're in my position and you don't have like a really core offer that is like really obvious and already spread out there and you haven't done this work for 5 years, it does feel like you still need something, right? You still need to find your way to that thing that you want to offer now. Also be investing in the future and thinking about maybe what's going to come in 5 years. So it's like a tricky balance between the two things.
Yeah, you're building two businesses at once. You're building the sort of the short-term business, which is probably just solving problems for people, kind of like whatever problems you can get your hands on and that are relevant to. So I was doing for the first 3 years high touch fractional chief operating officer work. I was doing, you know, as the kids say, I was doing work, right? I was pulling Salesforce reports for people and putting together monthly decks and doing cash flow forecasting. I was doing a job, right? And yeah, sure, I couldn't delegate it away and, I'm still doing a job, right? But like now I honed my skills. I was also doing contract consulting based on my old world. I was previously supply chain planning for Nike and a appliance company. So I did contract consulting for sales and operations planning for like a food and beverage company and apparel planning with some other colleagues, right? So like your network is huge. Like tap your network. But I was doing like job work for 3 years while I built my list. I actually tracked this down because I needed to show like how how long it takes and how hard it works. Now, I could have played the social media game. I did not play that well. But I started my list in like kind of started over in March of 2022 with like 120 people on my list. It's now not that large. It's still only 2,000, which is still a lot. But and I did not play the social media game very well. Some people blow up really quickly because they like, they played the threads, the Twitter threads games when it was popular, and they played the Substack notes game before the platforms. But because I was doing my job, like delivery-based work, I didn't have the capacity to really do both at once. I didn't actively start selling to my email list for roughly a year, 2 years after I started it. So I was making all my money through networking, referrals, high touch services while sharpening my point of view. And it's only in the last 2 years where it's really like that has started to like take off.
How did you resist the urge?
Oh, I needed to get paid. So I'm like, all right, like I'm a super practical person. I'm like, all right, gonna get paid through services. And I didn't have anything at the time for the people that were on my list. I'm like, I'm just gonna like write what I think and develop that point of view. I didn't have time to monetize the other side of the business. And nor did I necessarily need to, because when you've got 2, 3 fractional COO gigs and they're each, you're making 15 grand a month, but you're also working on hands on keyboard 40 hours, 30 hours a week for them. You pick your 10 hours a week and you sharpen your point of view but yeah, I didn't have time to sell anybody anything. So it was only when I started to have some kind of like audience around me that I'm like, okay, one fractional COO client sunset, then another one sunset, then another one sunset over the next 2 years. So I like ratcheted it down as my audience grew, but then I'm basically, you know, under the surface, you know, paddling like a crazy person, you know, I was working 40 to 50 hours a week because I was doing 30 hours of my core business, spending 10 to 20 hours building an audience and building a point of view and writing the book. And, you know, only now can I'm like take the foot off the gas a little bit, but it could, after 5 years of like basically running two businesses at once.
It just also feel like that's where the yellow comes from in the beginning to be like stepping back into the casino because it's like it always feels like an and. When I look at social media, people say, well, you need to have the hustle and work extra hard and do the work, but also you should be posting about doing that every day. Like you should do both. It's not pick one, right? Like you need to be posting about it and doing it. And that's where like it's a slippery slope into like, oh, well, then I need to get DAs to help me post more. And I need to have a podcast. And I need to help someone needs to help me edit that. And like it quickly becomes that you just like pulling out a lot of money into tooling and assistance and trying to grow, but you're actually just not really going anywhere.
So I did the math for another podcast that I was, or another guest article that I was on. I didn't make any actual profit from my leveraged side of the business until last year. I made revenue. I made like 10 grand my first year, 20 grand, 60 grand in revenue, but I spent it all. Now, to be fair, like I always approach everything like an asset. So my first year, I maybe didn't. I like spent money on an assistant that I didn't need. I then spent money on the social media team that didn't get me any results. I spent money on the podcast pitching agency that didn't get me a whole lot of clients, but got me like a lot of podcast interviews. And I'm thankful I could subsidize it with my services business, but I didn't actually like, so it costs a lot of money to kind of like, you either pay with time or you pay with money to like run a content engine. I didn't have time, so I spent money. But thankfully, I had money to spend because the reason I didn't have time was because I was running a services business. Like trying to run both at once is hard. It costs money. Now, like I've really thought, say, okay, how can I step back from doing so much of these things? Like, does my YouTube have to be perfect? No. Do we really need? Like I fired my assistant because I'm like, I know I'm not supposed to do these things. I'm not supposed to schedule stuff, but like it's cheaper for me to do it than sure, do I save the time? Maybe, but like, do I prefer to keep that money in my pocket right now? I do. So I think it's just like it's like you're gonna you're gonna put the effort in one way or the other. The question is just where you're gonna put the effort. And I think the important part is most people play it, they rely on the casino to kind of like they spend a lot of time learning, which I'm a big fan of learning, but I don't love procrasti-learning, which is where you take another course. Most people give up too early and they're not focused on like developing a point of view. They're focusing on checking a box. And I'm like, to be distinctive, you have to say like, and also like, I want people to get paid. I want people to get paid for their services, and payment currency looks different at the different stages of your business. Like, you know, get paid in practice, get paid in portfolio, get paid in network, get paid. I hate getting paid in exposure, but at the beginning, like if you don't have a case study and you don't have proof and you don't know what you're doing, even if you're an expert, do it for free, do it for cheap. Just start. doing it. And most people want the results too quickly and aren't willing to like push the edges and aren't willing to necessarily like stick at it long enough to get to close the taste gap and get good at it.
Yeah, I think that's something I've been struggling with, is to remind myself that like this is an entirely new thing that I'm new at. And it would be really bizarre to expect results within even a year. Like having skills as an individual contributor in a big company is absolutely different to doing all the marketing yourself, starting your own business, doing all the finances, figuring out what to charge people, figuring out how to get clients. Like it would be insane to think that also all you need to do is throw money at some expensive course from a guru and like they're going to teach you everything and it's going to be done in 6 months. But yeah, I think it's hard because you see that and you see people saying you can get results fast, throw money at this problem and you can get results. It's just so tempting. You think, yeah, great, sure, why not? That makes sense.
Also, you don't need to go, no one, you don't need to go to business school. Let me tell you what they do not teach you in business school. They do not teach you how to set up your own accounting software. They teach you how to review like an established company P&L, but they don't tell you how to set up your chart of accounts. They don't tell you how to like log an invoice so it's not double counting. They don't tell you what to do with credit card rewards because it's not really income, but it shows up weirdly on your balance sheet or you're like, where does this go? They don't tell you that. They teach you like marketing for CPG companies. They don't teach you, how to write. And also, people are going to read my book and they're going to be like, wow, this is great. Like my writing from 2018, like if there's a post that still gets some traction on my site, I'm like, this is terrible. It's
Please don't read
objectively
this.
I'm like, it's objectively I mean, it's not objectively bad, it's fine. But, like, it took me, like, 3 years of writing to really find my voice, and it took me a lot of, like, learning to, like, really find my voice. So, like, I had to get practice, but, like, I read the stuff that I wrote and look at my Instagram posts from, like, when I first started, and I'm like, "Yeah, this is boring as hell. It has no point of view." It shouldn't have, right? But it's like, it took me time to mature into my voice. It takes me time to figure out CRM systems. No one teaches you that in business school. It took me, but like everyone's like, oh, I need to go to business school to learn how to do business. I'm like, they do not teach you how to do business school or business in business school. They, I learned how to do business in big companies at Nike, and I learned how to do business in general at McKinsey. The only reason I learned how to do business in like small business is because I'm like, oh, I got to learn this for me and I got to put down on paper.
It just feels like there are skills that you can't really learn, or reading more about doing this stuff isn't really going to help me at this point. Like you mentioned, like outreach and networking and stuff like that. When I started the podcast, that was also my excuse to talk to people who I was basically too scared to just send an email to and be like, hi, can I talk to you and like be friends? It was much easier to be like, hey, do you want to come on my podcast? And it's still a little bit like that, but I noticed by doing that, like I started to build a bit of resilience for like just like asking people for stuff and like asking to talk to people. And it has led to me also messaging people just to connect, like without the excuse, just saying like, hey, we should just grab, if you want to grab coffee, or I'm also going to the same event as you, or hey, I really like the thing that you're doing. That's it. There's no ask. I just like the thing that you're doing. And that has led to stuff down the road, which I couldn't have anticipated. But I don't know if I would have started it without just, yeah, throwing myself out there basically.
Yeah, part of the way I like my solution to like wanting to meet new people was I paid for a whole bunch of stuff. Like I was really thoughtful about, okay, I want to learn the skill, but how can I learn it from a different voice in a different part of the internet silo than I have before? So I supported people's Patreons. I supported their Substacks. I paid for their courses. And I was really thoughtful about like being like, this is a different part of the internet silo. I could keep learning from the same person at like same part of the silo, or I could go somewhere else. And so like part of the way I like got entry to like talking to some people that are really famous is I paid them. And then I'm like, I'm in your program. Can I talk to you? Like I got to know people in different programs. And so I think and part of that was like, and part of this is like, I guess my corporate training is like, people are like, oh, I don't want to do networking. I don't want to track my metrics. I'm like, fine, you don't have to. Like, it's it works for if you work the system, it works. But like part of it was like my corporate training, like I was in a planning role. So every fourth Thursday of the month was a sales and operations planning executive meeting, and I had to have my shit dialed every Thursday. So like the last week of the month, every month, I canceled all plans. I like pre-scheduled my dinners. I like, knew that it was coming, like, and you sit down and you did it. Was it uncomfortable? 100%. But did you just kind of like, the cycle of how it works. So I'm both thankful for my corporate training and a little sad that I'm still quite attached to it. Yet it sometimes you just have to do stuff you don't want to do and recognize you're like, oh, this is uncomfortable. There's the discomfort of like, this is wrong versus the discomfort of this is hard. And I think succeeding in entrepreneurship is distinguishing and being like, yeah, I got to do some hard shit that's incredibly uncomfortable. And my first newsletters were terrible. My graphics when I started are awful. It's like, that stock can if anyone has used this, it's like a stock Canva person leaping across a like a cave with like sunset in the background. And I'm like, leap forward into 2020 or something like that. And I'm like, oh my God. I ran some Facebook ads when I was back in like my corporate days and I was looking at them and I'm like, no. Right. But like you gotta do the stuff that sucks in order to do the stuff that sings.
I think there's a lot of friction hidden in everything. And again, something I feel like I've been learning a lot. I don't know why it was so surprising to me, but like starting to do the projects I wanted to do outside of my day job, I was like, of course, there's friction everywhere. Like there's always going to be stuff I don't want to do. Like podcast scheduling is never fun, really. It's always like, oh, maybe Friday, I don't know, maybe next week, or it's just why would that be fun? I mean, I think I would be insane if I would love to doing that. Like, of course, the conversations are great, but of course, like, if I want to have the conversations, I've got to do the scheduling. And also, I'm not making money from it, so it would be insane to hire someone just to do this tiny bit of friction work that I don't want to do. I sometimes wonder if there's like an opposite side of the casino, which is what I've also seen online. It goes too far in the opposite direction, which is like, just put your stuff out there and the universe will align. Like, don't look at metrics. Don't look about if people are responding. Just focus on the work, but put it out there and see what happens. Also feels to me not very helpful, to be honest.
Well, it's like I talked about this in the chapter called like about enough. Like it's not the opposite of scarcity isn't abundance, it's sufficiency. And again, like the manifestation vibes are like, just vibes. And I'm like, okay, like if you're not at all concerned with packaging just a little bit and you don't know what happens, you can't make decisions without data. So, you know, I want people to have a hypothesis. I want people to like track what they do, right? Like have a plan and understand, did I execute the plan and not get the results I wanted? Cool. What in my plan should change? What can I improve? Where's the weak link? How can I approach it? If I didn't execute the plan and I didn't get the results, cool. I should know that. It's not a problem with my results. I didn't do the thing I set out to do. So I need to change the plan or I need to make it easier. I need to get the co-working. And it's important to say, talk with like experts and things like that about like, is this plan the right plan? Like people like want to grow their list and then they want to grow their audience and they're posting a YouTube video a month. That's not enough. Like I think that's the challenge is like there's a minimum level of activity that's required to get momentum either in your networking or on the platforms. And it's helpful to know what the minimum is. Now, it's not just about the minimum, but I'm like, if you're not having 1 to 2 conversations with new people every week because you've probably sent 5 to 10 emails and a week personally to people, your network's probably not going to go fast enough. Now, do you have the time and space to send 5 to 10 emails? Does it take you probably 3 to 4 hours instead of it takes probably you're getting faster at it? Like you get faster at it, but the only way you get faster at it is by doing it more often. But I think there's also like we are not transparent about sort of the minimum level of activity that's required to get momentum. If this is important to you. And I think there's also a what role is this playing in your life question. I needed to make money pretty quickly because I needed to that was like my husband's job does not pay all of our bills. So for us to, do the things we want to do in life, I needed to bring in $5,000 a month. So, like this wasn't I mean, I could have pulled from savings probably for a long time, thanks for corporate. But if you don't need to grow that quickly or you don't need to make that much money because that's not the role the business plays in your life, you don't have to do what I did. You don't have to hit those minimums. But I think it's really important to say like, what are we optimizing for here? For me, to I chose to make the income I needed to make, which meant I worked the hours I needed to work. I put in the level of effort because I needed a 6-figure business in order to pay my bills.
It sounds like actually asking, what am I optimizing for, is a very powerful question. And answering it honestly and actually thinking about genuinely what do I need right now from this situation?
Yeah, what do I need right now and what's the level of commitment? Like if I wanted to be a and we have the same thing around health. Like if I wanted to, run a marathon, you're not just gonna like manifest your way in a marathon. Like you're like, all right, well then I need to put, you know, base on my legs for 6 months. And then I need to have, my Saturdays are long runs. And then you start to architect your way around this goal. But if you're like, I just want to like be able to like walk down the street and not be out of breath, it's a different way to spend your fitness time.
Something you also wrote about is like the distinction between like knowing if you are aiming for like a delivery type business versus a content type business. Do you think there's still actually room for a content type business? I'm asking this as someone who I think reading that I realized like, oh, I think I kind of do want to have a content type business. Like I do like the broad impact idea, but oh my God, how am I going to do that? It's 2026. There are so many podcasts, there are so many newsletters. Like, am I just insane to even try?
Well, I think if you want to monetize, so delivery based is like you are monetizing a service. Creator based is you're monetizing around an idea. Do I think that can you just monetize the media property? Probably not. Maybe. I mean, like I'm there probably, but like most people who are monetizing an idea are also backing it up with sponsorships. They're backing it up with community, courses, cohorts, some kind of application, or they're fueling it with ads, right? Like, but the question is like, or they're going on the speaking circuit. They're developing some kind of point of view. Like Anne Lore Lecumpf, who you may have heard of. Paul's featured that her stuff. I don't think she has Nest Labs, which makes money. She has keynote speaking. She has the book. She has a job. So Anne Lore has a creator style business, but there's a spiky point of view in there that is the rallying cry, but also like Giacomo Forte has a content business. But again, do they make money on the YouTube? No. Do they make money on the, building a second brain community and the courses? Yes. So I don't know if you can make it's probably hard to make just the monetization of content work unless it's your audience is you either got to go super broad or you got to go super niche and either niche to like a lot of like interesting people. I think like perimenopause communities are going to take off, or you go super high end. Like you could have like a CJ Gustafson has like a newsletter that's like for VC CFOs, venture capital CFOs, and that is like makes a lot of money because it's a super high net worth, super targeted, super they have money to spend content business. You could do it as long as you are like thinking like, okay, what's my monetization end game?
Do you think you have to have that squared up pretty fast?
If you want to monetize it early, yes. If you're just like, let me explore my way to a thesis, I think you have to explore your way to a thesis. You at some point you have to have a thesis. You have a thesis that you stand behind a concept and then you're like, okay, is this thesis monetizable? If you're trying to make money from it, if you're trying to figure out what you're excited about exploring for the next 5 to 10 years, then no, I don't think you have to do that. But then also like, please don't make that pay your bills.
I suppose it goes back to what you said, right? Like it's what am I optimizing for? What do I actually need from the situation right now? And like what am I really aiming for?
Yeah. One of my colleagues, Amelia, who I wrote about in the book, was running a podcast studio for 5 years. And that was how they made their money. Then as they were running the podcast studio, they got off social media because that wasn't how she wanted to grow. Then she launched a podcast about how to get off of social media and still not without losing your clients. And that is now in its like eighth season. It doesn't run like it's not all the time. So it's like short seasons. So it was like in 8 seasons. She launched a book. She has a community. She has some programs and she has rallied a group around her. And now that business makes money. So, but like again, she didn't force the business to she didn't force the art to pay the bills. She circled around and explored a topic until she hit something. And then she's like, I've got something. How can I dive deeper on that? And now how can I focus all my effort on that?
Honestly, so far, every single person I spoke to on this podcast too is also a creative in some way. So maybe it's photography or art or something else. I almost feel naive to be surprised, but every single person essentially is like, oh, no, this is not how I make all my money. Like, this is like, I have something to reduce the pressure from my art. Like, the art can't be the only thing because it's just so much pressure to only make money off that. Like, it's so hard to only do that. Of course, I have other things, a part-time job or a course or something I can offer, which makes sense.
Like really like it's so hard to get attention right now that the attention goes to the 1%. The creator economy has the 1%. If you want to make money from your content, from your art, But, very much Elizabeth Gilbert and Big Magic is like, don't make your art pay the bills. If you want to make it art, like if you want to, again, like that's where it's like, that's why, Brian Trahan, and he's a YouTuber. I don't know how much money that guy makes, but like he makes a lot of money. But like, I think you have to be really good to make money just from the creative.
I think I keep using myself as an example. I feel very egotistical, but I think I've gone from like a stage of like, again, I think because of also the mimetic desire, which you also talk about, and like seeing other people. I think when I started, I was like, I am doing a podcast because of the passion, but I also need to figure out how to make this work so I can make money from it and also be my career. And I'm going to be really good at it. Oh my God. And then I kind of went to a point where I was like, well, actually, I started it primarily because I actually just genuinely really want to have good conversations. That is genuinely the reason I started. And now I'm just like, I'm back at that stage where I started, where I'm like, well, yeah, that was the point. Like, why would I also want to ruin this by trying to make it my job and make money from it? Like, it is enough to just know, what am I optimizing for? Genuinely enjoyable conversations and maybe connecting with people through the podcast. That should be enough. And it is actually enough. The money and all that kind of stuff can be just a bonus.
One of the things that I didn't talk about in the book that is kind of like I think about in terms of economics is like sort of like there's a step change functions or like limiting factors. Like the my business doesn't like the business I like used to run like fractional CEOs, it only worked, like I needed 3 clients. 5 clients would have broken the business. Like so sometimes it's like, okay, like if I think about this with like solo people doing like tarot cards readings and stuff like that, you know, you can't make $500,000 doing solo tarot card readings because at some point the business model breaks. There's like literally no more hours and you can't. I mean, maybe if you're like tarot, like maybe Shani Nicholas now because she has the tarot, but like you can't charge $1,000 an hour for a tarot card reading most of the time, right? So, like, there's a limit of, like, yeah, like, trying to grow past this limit changes it's a step change function in, like, what I'm asking the business to do for me. It's a step change function in the responsibility. It's the step change function in the type of clients. It changes from, like, a creative passion, hobby exploration to a content calendar. It changes, and so I don't think we think about it from an economics perspective. It's kinda like a, debt cliff or something like that. Okay, well, if growing this thing, will it change it, and am I okay with that? Like Amelia's podcast production studio, like, there's an upper limit. I'm like, "Okay, yeah, like, this is how many podcasts you can do without hiring a team. Do you wanna do more than that? Do you wanna do less than that?" And those are the cliffs that I talk about a little bit in the book, but, like, we don't talk about enough is, like, yeah, if my business were to be $1,000,000 in revenue, it'd be a whole different business, and I'm not sure I want that kind of business, even though I'm told you should be seven-figure entrepreneur. I'm like, that would require me to have success coaches working for me. That would require like funnels and that would require ads and that would require 2 or 3 more books. And maybe one day I'll get there. But like right now, like I don't want that business because I know what it will cost of me.
I suppose it's fine to want that, but it's also very fine to be like, I actually just don't want that right now. Like I'm in the like the zone of enoughness, right? Like I have enough at this stage. I don't have to grow uncontrollably. I think you write in the book, the only thing that grows uncontrollably is cancer.
Yes. Yeah. But like we don't like in the striving, it's like people are like, "Oh yeah." Like there's this business coach and he's like, "Oh yeah, I make $1,000,000 in the high ticket service and like you can make $1,000,000 too." And I'm like, "Cool. You serve people that are already making, a couple $100,000 and you help them get to the $1,000,000 mark, which is why you can charge $2,000 a month for your group program and you only need to sell, you know, 20 people into that and then you make, your money." Well, I don't want to serve that population. So I can't just like, I can follow the same model. I can have a quote unquote higher end group program, but I can't charge that much money because my people don't have that much money. So like I can have the same model. I can do all the things he's doing and I'm still going to make a whole lot less money because of the population I'm choosing to serve. And again, like, it's not, it's like, oh, like, let me tell you how to make $1,000,000. I'm like, okay, cool. You're serving, and everyone's like, serve a population that has money. And I'm like, okay, cool. And what if I don't want to? Like, I don't want to serve people that have no money, because they need to pay for my stuff. But I'm like, I feel like there's an underserved population of people from like 25 to 250K that like no one wants to serve them. So I'm going to.
Honestly, I don't think you realize how much you're speaking to my soul right now because advice I've gotten recently is like, well, okay, look, you're in tech, you have coaching skills, you're starting to post more online. You should be selling to like the tech people, right? Tech people have money. So you need to find an offer that specifically targets people in the industry you're in tech. And the whole time I'm like in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, I don't want to. What if I don't want to do that? Like, I understand it's a logical thing to do, but what if I don't want to do it? Like, it's such a tension to me of like, well, what else am I supposed to do, right? Like, I guess I need to then network outside of tech or like talk to more people outside of tech because I don't know why, but I have some feeling of like, well, yes, that would be logical. Those people do have money, but I just don't want to do that.
Yeah, and it does require networking outside of it. I mean, like, I thought I started my business being like, I want to be a fractional COO for seven-figure entrepreneurs and businesses, and it turns out that I can do it. I'm very good at it, and I don't want to because I end up getting sucked into doing work for them, and to be frank, they don't move as fast as I want to move. Like, I'm like, I cannot litigate this decision over and over and over again with you. Is it more lucrative? 100%. Was it the thing I did when I started just to get paid? 100%. Is it what calls to my soul? Not at all. And but I kind of like, again, like I had to leave my corporate job, do work that I thought I wanted to do, but I didn't really, turns out I don't really love until I earned the right through effort to do the work I really want to do. But again, like, for there was a couple years in the middle where I'm like, yeah, do I love talking about apparel planning? No. Do I love pulling Salesforce reports and spending 10 hours once a month putting month-end reports together for clients? No, but like that's what I needed to do to like pay the bills while I was like figuring out who I wanted to be in the world.
But what actually kept you going in those beginning years? I mean, you said you were not even doing the work yet that you were like really wanting to do. You were still running, like, you were running your own business. You weren't in corporate, but like, was there no temptation to be like, oh, maybe I should just go back? Like, maybe it's not worth the effort.
I would say like I hated my last corporate job. And also it's
Okay.
COVID, right? So like, like I had
Okay.
a dog, I just got married. Like I'm like, I'm gonna do whatever I need to do to stay in the game because the last thing I ever wanted to do is have to drive back to an effing office again. Like, I'm like, nope, nope. What do I need to do to stay the hell out of that? I am both a fantastic employee and a terrible employee. I'm a fantastic employee because I learned quickly, I do things on time, I have a high work ethic, and I'm a terrible employee because I'm like, what is happening here? Why are you making bad decisions? Why are you not making decisions at all? Y'all are terrible. So, like, I'm a terrible, like, I was like a little bit of like I wasn't unmanageable, but I went rogue a lot 'cause I would say I didn't play the politics game very well because 'cause I'm just like, I don't have the capacity for it. So, I stayed in the game because 'cause I'm like, "Well, I need to make money." I'm like, and I also stayed in the game because I was learning. I was always like, I was like a bloodhound being like, "Why is this working? Why are they not doing this? Why?" I was asking like the why questions. So while I was doing the job, which was fine, I was asking a bunch of questions about what I was learning along the way. So it's like I was getting my creative outlet in, and no one could tell me that I wasn't allowed to publish what I was publishing. And no one could tell me I need to show up at office at 8 o'clock after having commuting in uncomfortable pants and uncomfortable shoes. Like, I'm like, all right, I can do the work that's not super sexy just to keep me in the game and keep me from going back while I figure out who I am and what I want to be in this next version of my life.
I mean, you also wrote about like seasons and also this idea of like going from like surviving to sustaining and strengthening. It sounds like actually that was the answer for you. Like you actually lived that exact experience of like in the beginning, but like, no, I am surviving this. Like I'm
Yes.
determined to survive this. And the season I'm in is one way I'm going to burn right through until I make this work. Like until I can sustain this.
Yeah. I mean, the good news is like I always had what I really wanted to do sort of like as a slight undercurrent. Like my first year out, I had one ideal client for the work I wanted to do now. And I made like $5,000 and I made $40,000 with contract consulting. And then my second year, I made $100,000 with contract consulting. And then I made $30,000 with the work I wanted to do. So there was always a thread. There was always a thread of like this. How can I get better at doing this? How can I do more of this? How can I do more of this kind of stuff? Right. But I was like, all right, I had like two parts of my job. Like literally one part I had like, I took a part-time consulting gig and I was like 20 hours a week. I'm like, cool. That gives me enough ballast so I don't just like spend my days. I don't even know what people do when they're not like when they're not like with client work, because I've always had some kind of part-time thing that like filled up a lot of my days on it's part-time consulting work or something like that. So I always had something part-time, but I'm like, there was always a glimmer. And I think it's like, what are you I'm lucky that I found what I was passionate about quickly. It took me a while to monetize it, but I was lucky I found it quickly. I found an angle that was really important to me. I think that's what's really important is like, okay, like once you find I talked about with Paul, like I was running from until really figured out what I was running to. And then you just like, as what it said, Hemingway says, you just open up your arms and bleed out on the page.
Do you feel like you have any issues with balance? Because I
Oh,
feel like something
100%.
I was somehow hoping you could be like, no, 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 everything gets totally balanced. I don't work too much. It's all fine.
Well, I would say like, do I have issues with balance? I'm always thinking about my business, right? But I have a dog and I have a husband. And so like, my dog needs to go out in the morning. He needs to go out at night. Like I have no more issues with like I work on the weekends, but then I don't work in the mornings like a lot of times. So it's like I think it's like I have issues with balance, but it's more like I treat my business like a job. And at the end of the night, I like put my phone over there. And at the beginning of the day, I put my phone over there. And I think I have the same when you're ambitious. I have like a striving of like, I want to, but I'm not striving to meet other people's deadlines. I'm not striving to meet money. I'm striving because I feel compelled to get ideas out there and I feel pulled by my ideas versus pushed by external things. I'm like, I should do this and I should do this and I should do this. Like now that I have the book, I'm like, okay, well, there's a bunch of stuff that like people are not coming to me for that I don't have like documented. I'm like, oh, I need to do this. I need to do this. I need to do this. So it's like a call versus a push.
It's like you're pulling on a thread of excitement.
Yes. And also I just moved. So I'm like, all right, well, last 2 weekends, I'm like, I went on vacation with my husband, and now we're unpacking all boxes, and we're unpacking all boxes, and we're unpacking all boxes. Like last week, we were gonna have a big snowstorm, and like I didn't have calls until 11, and so every morning that week, I went to the grocery store and like bought stuff for the snowed in. We thankfully didn't lose power, so it's like I still worked like a 6 to 8 hour day. It just got shifted time from like starting at I went and worked out in the morning. So I'd say I have like, my balance issues are I've really pruned a lot of stuff that isn't serving me, and now I'm like, "How am I racing towards the call and the pull of these ideas, and how can I get them down before they take over my life?"
That's also why I asked the question, because I mean, you talk about the enoughness, but then it's clear that you also have passion about what you're doing and what you're talking about. And when I have passion about the things I'm doing, it's so hard to turn it off. And sometimes I'm like, well, maybe that's not the point. Maybe I should not try to turn that off, right? Like, of course, I'm doing things that I'm passionate about. Of course, I'm going to have a bunch of ideas the more I do those things. But at the same time, I don't want to like build something of my own that I'm super passionate about and then burn out anyway because I have no way of turning off from those ideas.
Yeah, and part of, like, the zone of enoughness was, like, I recognized, like, at the, like, last year, I was gonna or, like, the end of last year, I was gonna launch something in December, and I was gonna launch a 12-week program, and I'm like, "Hard pass." Like, my body said no, and I listened. It was, like, last year, I needed to, like, ramp down my final COO client. It's like, I'm like, I don't know. I'm that's $5,000 a month. That's not coming to my checking account. Cool. I don't know where the rest of it's going to come from. It came, it showed up. But like, there are these things where it's like, if I had wanted to work harder, I could have kept the business. But there's a difference between I need to like, you know, set these revenue goals and hit the revenue goals. Like I technically made less this year or last year than I did the year before, kind of intentionally. I'm like, cool, I could keep serving this type of client and make more money, and I would hate it. So I moved more towards you know, it is a silly, stupid choice for me to go down market and serve people with a $30 a month membership. That is a poor financial choice. Everyone else's like memberships are like $199 a month or $97 a month. And I'm like, I got a $30 a month membership. If I was trying to like make more money, I wouldn't do that. So it's like I have my balance is like, yeah, I'm going to trade off some money and time, but not as much time as I could in order to like move over to the space of like creative autonomy a little bit now. But like I also still like, do my books once a month and I track my metrics and I like launch the courses and I handle the admin of my business. Right. Like I don't really want to do any of that. I mean, I do and I don't. Like it's like cleanliness makes my heart my little heart, cleanliness organization makes my heart happy. But so I think it's like I have huge levels of ambition, but I recognize if like putting something on my plate is gonna like burn me out, then I'm like, nope, pause. That's on the next. I got like a list of projects for the next like 5 years, like plotted out. I can't do them all tomorrow.
How do you actually consciously make those trade-offs? Is it literally just checking in and like writing those things down and then seeing like this is just literally too much stuff?
Yeah, I have like one I have two business building projects at a time. I usually have like what I call the arc, the chapter in the season. So I have an arc for my work. So I'm in the end of my arc of the leaving the casino arc and kind of like the framework setting of deeper foundations. So I'm like, okay, like now that I have the book, how do I have some introductory courses that ladder out to my programs? After the book was done, I revamped my signature curriculum last year. Now I'm like, okay, I can't start on the next book, even though I now have two book ideas. I have two concepts. I can't start on the next one until I've like finished up a handful of these like mini courses. And so I said, I'm going to do this mini course, then this mini course, then this mini course. And so when I have glimmers of ideas, they get parked on an ideas list. And I'm like, all right, like I've kind of the restraint of having to not do them is really hard. But I literally don't have time.
I was sort of hoping again you'd be like, oh no, yeah, the restraint is not that hard. Like you get used to it, but
The restraint is so hard, but also like I let ideas compost for longer. I think that's when they come out a little more baked than if I were to rush them. So, like, I don't ever just launch things that I'm passionate about. I'm like, "Cool. I'm gonna like" it's kinda like when you buy clothes and you're like, "I could, like, buy it from an ad I saw, but no, I'm gonna let it sit in the checkout, and I'm gonna let it sit there, I'm gonna think about it, I'm gonna compare, and then I'm gonna buy it." But I'm gonna buy it after I've had a chance like, every idea I've had has been marinated on for in the background for months, and then I it comes out when it's, like, next time.
was that the same in the beginning? Because I feel like, at least for me, it's very tempting to want to immediately launch everything because I don't have like that one thing where I'm like, this is the thing I want to make money with on my own. So like every idea I have, I'm like, oh, maybe that's the one. And I immediately want to launch it to test it. And I feel like that's also part of what you see online is that everyone's saying, like, especially in like product development and tech, is like MVP mindset, launch the idea, talk to people and launch it fast, fast, fast.
Well, I think, like, launch the idea, my signature cohort was because I taught a free class for 6 months before I launched a program. So, like, I MVP'd it in the sense of, like, how can I gather people around this idea, and how can I get better at it, and how can I go through a couple rounds of it? Please don't create a course. Please don't create and I'm not saying you, but I'm, like, generally, like, things like, nothing I do I did my first strategy session for free by doing it for people that were in my network, and I'm like, "Can I do this for you for free? Can I get practice?" So, I'm always like, "How can I test the idea? How can I get rally people around the idea early in prototyping stage before I commit a whole lot of, like, business building effort to that time?"
Yeah, that makes sense. So you still want to like lightly test stuff, but you don't want to immediately go all in on the idea without knowing if it's actually going to be worthwhile.
Yeah, so, my second book or third book, one of the 2, it's gonna I've been there's some frameworks that I'm like, "I have this framework." Now, I could immediately start writing the book if I wanted to. I mean, I don't have time. But I could start immediately writing the book. But what I'm doing is I'm writing some things in the morning on it. I'm taking some notes. I'm clipping some quotes. I'm soft testing it with some clients. I'm developing checklist over here and developing this things. And so I'm kind of amassing a second brainish type of stuff. And I'm testing the angles and things like that. What you find in my book, there's the first chapter of what business are you running? That was an article I wrote in the fall of 2022 or 2023. I think it was either one of those 2. Maybe it was early 2023, and then 2 years later, it was an article, then it became a class, then it became a YouTube video, and then I expanded on it more, and then it became a chapter in my book. So, I revisited the idea in a whole lot of forms, but, I said and people are like, "Oh, I love this, I love this, I love this, people are talking about it, people are talking about it." And then I codified it. But I did it I put it out in the world to get feedback on it in a low stakes effort kinda way.
Something I'm realizing from this conversation is that even though you've told me multiple times, At least I find it really hard to actually genuinely internalize just how long stuff can actually take. Like the long-term compounding is long-term. I understand that, but still hearing you say it again and again, like part of me is like, it's just hard to understand the time frames and like what like how like that compounding can really take years until it pays off or doesn't pay off. But it sounds like you're saying, yeah, toy around with stuff, keep toying around as you go, but also be aware of this like long-term effect that might have.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, like I put that article out there and it got picked up by Every. I mean, I pitched it to Every. So it got picked up by like an online publication before they went like super AI. And then someone found it and sent it to a friend. And so I started getting clients from that article long before it turned it into a book. So, like, it's not like you have to wait. I call it my roots to fruits metrics philosophy, which is you plant, which is not in the book. It'll be in the second or third book, depending on the order in which they come in. But it's a framework I've been teaching in my programs. Like, you have to plant seeds. You have to you have to build the relationships. You have to put the ideas out there. You have to test stuff. You have to build the infrastructure. So those are the roots. You have to, you know, start your email list and have your podcast or not and build your CRM system and, make some long form essays and you have to build the infrastructure. And then you track the sprouts, which are the signals, and then you track the fruits, which is the ultimate results of your labor. So I think, you need to track all four things because it can be really hard to be like, well, I'm not planting seeds and therefore I'm not getting fruits, or I'm planting seeds without looking at what's happening to them. And therefore it's like I'm not getting any better at what I'm doing, or I'm not getting any better at what I'm doing because I'm not taking the time to be like, what am I learning? What am I noticing? What's exciting for me? And so I think that's where you start to get signal much earlier than you start to get fully formed results. So like there's going to be an article or a YouTube or an angle or something like that that pops off and you're like, that's an outlier. Cool. What did I learn from that? So you're going to get that signal much earlier, but like building then a rallying around that takes more time than you think because it needs to spread. Unless you went, did you read that like super viral, like, $100,000, $140,000 is the new poverty line article?
I did. Yes, I did.
So I don't remember who wrote it, right? That's kind of like the challenge is
True.
like,
Me neither.
look, you have the idea, these mimetic ideas spread, but you don't necessarily remember who wrote it. And that's the trick is how do you so some of the ideas that are now that person, can you double down on that? Like there's some Substack ones where I'm like, the second hit wasn't as good as the first because there's no continuity there. So it's like, all right, well, now that I have the hit, how can I start expanding on that in multiple dimensions? And how can I start bringing that to other people if that's something that you want to go pursue? So it's like that guy got real signal, couldn't tell you who wrote it.
It reduces some pressure in a way because I also had the same idea. Like if you pop off once, you're like, that's all it takes. You pop off once, and then you just do that, like 10 variations of that, and then you probably found your niche, right? You found the thing that people are resonating with. So at that point, done, right? You just need to do that again. And if that doesn't pop off, then it's your fault. You just didn't do it well enough. But I actually had that with you asked me earlier in the podcast episode, like, how did I find your book? And I mentioned that I saw it on Paul Miller's Substack. But I'm pretty sure I didn't buy it on the first time I saw it. I think I remember thinking the idea was cool, but I didn't like click in and read all the details. And then maybe the second or third time I saw it on Substack or somewhere, and I was like, okay, I really should read this. This looks really good. Even something that I read, and on the first look, I was like, this is really cool. Still wasn't enough to maybe stop, go through, buy the thing, read the thing. Like it took me like at least probably like 3 exposures before I was like actually ready to make a purchase.
Yeah. It's like there's a concept my colleague, she calls the adoption threshold. So enough people have to be kind of talking about it or talking about you or you know them or something like that where it like becomes in your consciousness. And I think that's what like you can have the idea, but it takes repeated exposures, as you're saying, to like really make change because we're living in the attention economy. It's so hard. So I think this is where it's like, can you get something that's like, ooh, this is a thing here? And then it takes the work to like double down, explore that thing from different angles, continue to shop it to different networks that you're a part of to start to seed that concept in. So you can get signal quickly. Can you get momentum quickly? Probably not. I think there's a difference between decoupling signal from momentum. Signal is the early sign that's like, I have something here. How can I go explore that? Paul's book popped off partially because he already built the network. Like his book really started to get traction because enough people had shared it and he knew Ali. through probably some other, you know, David Perel, other networks. Again, like that's all through relationships. And I'm like, how can I have a book that grows like Paul's? Right. And it's because of those web of relationships that managed to get that book in Ollie's hands. Ollie talked about it. It was a, signal, but like, Paul had been talking about the pathless path for years before he wrote the book. And so I think that's like, but the signal came early. The momentum came later.
I'm now wondering, how do you really literally go from that signal to that momentum? And again, maybe it's just actually accepting that that might take a little bit longer. But say you do get that one thing that pops off and you're like, oh, this is the thing. What do I do? I should set, like, I should make a course. Or like, what are the real steps to take?
Then you say, like, how can I go speak about this idea, talk about this idea in other places? How can I be like, this is a thing I have a thing about. Okay, let me go see, let me have conversations about it with other people. How can I go sharpen my point of view about this thing and then see if I can talk to other people's audiences about that idea? So your job is to kind of like go seed your philosophy and idea in as many places as you can through lots of conversations, which is when it's really helpful to have pre-existing relationships. It's like a seed starter. You're like planting those seeds. And then you're also at the same time as you're getting the seed of the concept out to a lot of places, you're also interrogating your own philosophies and thoughts and points of view about it in your own long form writing. So you're writing deeper content that it continues to like flush out your point of view, develop a thesis and an argument for what you're trying to do, go talk about it to a lot of people. And then you're like, okay, like if people are coming back to you and reflecting back, like, I want to learn more, then you're like, cool. What's the thing that I can monetize that solves the problem that they're having? Is it a course? Is it a book? Is it a paid thing? Is it I don't know. Is it an event? Is it a membership? I don't know. But that's when you're like, you have to like go put the idea and seed it in networks that you're not in.
This is almost answering another question I'd had a lot in the beginning, because one other common thing I see and I read a lot about is like, oh, you have to niche down and you have to find your niche early. It sounds like you're kind of saying, well, actually, you should be putting out the ideas that you care about and connecting with people and listening to their problems. And then based on the signals, then you're finding a niche rather than like starting from a point of like, oh, I need to niche down immediately and I need to make my messaging super clear.
I think the patterns emerge. And so you're looking for pattern. Now, if you are like all over the board, you're never going to find a pattern. So you're like, all right, I got to have like a hypothesis of like, I think this is the types of problems and patterns I want to solve or investigate more about. Why is conventional advice not working here? Why is there something like, oh, people are struggling with this? Why? This is a unconventional point of view. Why? You have to like, I think you hypothesize about where the problem you want to investigate lives, and then the pattern emerges. So I think you have to niche on, like, pick a problem, but like I think you have to pick like you know, let's say you want to be a bookkeeper. All right, bookkeeping. You don't have to pick an industry necessarily, but you're like, okay, are you people's first bookkeeper? Are you the bookkeeper people come to after their first bookkeeper did a bad job? Are you a bookkeeper for cannabis firms? Are you a bookkeeper for, constructions and trades and like other service providers? It's like, okay, well, why does conventional bookkeeping not work for these people? Let me go dig in here. So I think it's like you match your interests and you match where do you have conviction that you want to go explore more around, and why conventional narratives or conventional services are leaving a somewhat of a gap in the market, and then you go solve that.
I'm actually realizing it's a lot like product work. Like you have a hypothesis, maybe you have some success criteria. You want to be able to quickly test that. So you want to make sure you define it very clearly. Don't just have like 15 different ideas. Have one clear hypothesis. Test that with people as fast as you can, and then adjust. Like also don't double down. If every signal you get is negative or no interest, it would probably be madness to double down, even if that's the thing you're super passionate about. Well, maybe you need to tweak it and find a different hypothesis.
Yeah, it's like you're looking for pull in the market, and you're like, I'm going to put myself in a position where I'm going to be able to find out quickly whether or not there's pull. And if you're spread too, like I call it, like you're kind of like a hiking. It's like, all right, I call like services work and even creator work. I'm like, all right, you're helping people go on a journey from A to point B, and your approach and your philosophy is like the methodology, right? Like you're giving people a map. But and this is a super US centric example. The map looks different if you're starting at Hood River, Oregon, than if you're trying to do the Appalachian Trail. And If you're doing mushroom foraging out in the river versus alpine climbing, like the markers are different, the gear you need is different, the objectives are different. So you have to pick like a path or a pathless path, as it were. But you have to pick a path in like a transition period or a challenge or a pattern that like someone's having, and you're like, cool, like that's where like niche comes from. You have to like pick an area to explore and be willing to like figure out the angle within that area that might change over time.
You can't take every single road. You have to at least drive down one road for a while before making a turn. You can't just try every single possible road that you come to.
Right. And then like, there's a myriad of business coaches, consultants who serve expert-led business owners. I'm not the only one. We all have something different. Like I'm teaching radical business fundamentals, foundations that scale and grow. Again, like my philosophies are like heavily framework centric. They combine physics and systems thinking and nature analogies, right? Like that's a very, but like there's a competitor of mine who hers is all about like, you know, lineage and, wealth building through intuition. And I'm like, yes, and let's do the math on what you need for make for money perspective. Like, let's like, so I lead first with like is it a money mindset or do you truly not have done the math? Let's do the math first. Let's go the rational side first, and then let's go to the more natural holistic side. Some people like there's some who does like business witchery. All right. Well, I use tarot and astrology and natural nature centered, metaphors occasionally, but I do not lead with like rituals. I do lead with rituals sometimes, but I don't lead with like coven and, ceremony as like I'm like, okay, we're gonna have class. Like mine's like more of like a business school. So, even us, we've do similar things and we talk about similar concepts, but we have different language and metaphor that we use, and that all evolves with time. I didn't use any of that stuff when I started, by the way. I didn't have language. And as I developed, I started like paying attention, like what language am I using? What metaphors do I use all the time? And how do I start to weave that into my book? That's why my colors are green, because I talked about plants and trees all the time, even though I'm like a very not a plant in tree. Like I'm terrible at growing things, but I love the idea of growing things.
Except businesses.
Terrible at growing plants. Terrible at growing plants. Good at growing businesses.
It also makes sense that it like developed over time again, right? It's not like you arrived on day one and you were like, oh, I know exactly what language to use that resonates with people. I know exactly what my branding colors are. I know how to exactly frame myself in the market, all this kind of stuff. Again, it's like just realizing that the long view it is going to take some time. Like it's not going to be done in a month. It's not going to be done in 6 months. It's probably going to take some time to actually get the results that you want.
But I think that's true with anything that's resilient. Just like we don't live in a culture that rewards resiliency, right? We live in a culture that's like like some of the YouTube videos, it's like, well, let me spend 6 months getting in shape, and then like it's like dialed into like a 10-minute video, and you're like, do you know how much time and effort like you spent 6 months on this transformation video that's been like distilled to like 30 minutes? It was 6 months of work. But, you can like binge through that content so fast, right? And so we're used to being like, "Oh, I can get fit in 30 minutes," right? Like, versus like "Oh no, this actually took like how long did this take?" Right? Just like because of the speed of consumption of like content, we're like, "Oh, this should be fast." And I'm like, wasn't fast for them. They had to go work out like 5 times a week for like 6 months and film themselves every time.
True. This is a very like probably a niche reference to many people listening to this, but there's a actor and entertainer called Brendan Lee Mulligan, and he is basically famous for being a dungeon master. So he plays D&D for a living, and I love it because like now he's kind of like popped off. So he's actually like within I would say nerd entertainment quite famous. But in almost every interview I've listened to with him, he's very open about the fact he's like this is my passion. Like this has been my passion for my whole life. This is a niche nerdy passion of like doing improv theater and like D&D. Do you think that when I started doing this, I really planned that 20 years down the line, that D&D would become randomly during COVID a global sensation and make me some kind of like nerd superstar and that this would be my career? Like, how could I have possibly planned this? Why would I be doing this if I didn't just really, really care about it? And I hadn't worked really hard for a really long time. and also met a lot of really important people along the path to get to this point. Like he's now getting those questions like, how did you do this? You know, how did you figure out quickly from like, I like playing D&D, I'm going to make it my career? It's like, that's not how it works. Like it took luck, it took networking, it took like 20 to 30 years of like super hard work. Like that is just generally not how things work. But at the same time, I think it's obviously how we want things to work secretly, right? It's like, yeah, but maybe I can be the one who makes this work in 6 months.
Well, secretly, no, we all want this to work transparently. Apparently, we're all
Yeah,
like,
sorry.
God, can it be faster? And I will tell you, you know, I spent money, a lot of money trying to make it go faster. And some of that money did make it go faster. Like, I'm not going to lie. It's kind of like when I don't know where you and I don't know, sororities and fraternities aren't like a thing in Europe, are they?
Not really, but I guess you get the point.
Well, like when I wanted to make friends in college, you know what I did? I joined a sorority. I bought my way into friendships. It's like there's some places where you got to spend money to make money to like order to make connections because like convening people is not cheap. Like it comes with labor. And so I'm like, okay, someone else has done the labor of like gathering people together. I'm going to pay them for that labor. It costs money. But, and, so did I need to spend as much money? No. Did I need to spend some money to get entry, to expand my network, to learn new skills, to grow my skill set? Yes. But if anyone's taking away from this, it's like, just don't believe the dream and the hype that it's going to just like magically happen faster. Invest in your skills, invest in joining communities that are going to help expand your network strategically, but and make smart investments, but don't believe the hype.
That's a great summary. And I was actually going to ask you if there's one key takeaway for people to take away after the episode. Maybe that's exactly it. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Always be thinking about how, like, always be like, I hate the concept of 1% better, but like when you're doing something, be like, how can I like dig a little deeper the next time if you're making content? But really, it's always ask the question, what is their business? And does their business require duping me about mine? And if their business requires kind of me falling for a trick, maybe I shouldn't invest. But there are smart investments and there are investments that are designed to capitalize on your gullibility. Don't make those.
I'm sure I've already made a few of those, but
We all do, right? Like I wish people could do it without getting burned. I don't know a single person, myself included, who has made it through without being like, I made no questionable investments of time, money, and attention. Like, there's no one that can say that because it's so good. It's so it's so compelling. So don't beat yourself up about it if you've made some mistakes about investing. How can you just continue to be like, all right, cool. How can I reclaim my agency?
I'm also asking every single guest for a book or a resource recommendation. And I do hope every single person listening does go and buy Leaving the Casino if they haven't already. But I wonder if you have any other book or resource recommendation you would want to share.
I have two. So I mentioned it earlier, but Tiny Experiments by Anne-Laure Lecrumpf, kind of like commit to these packs and make them small, but make them doable and actually do them. And for any service-based business owners out there, David C. Baker's The Business of Expertise. It's really all about thinking about like not niching necessarily, but like a point of view that helps set your company apart.
Awesome. I've read Tiny Experiments. I've not read the other one. So as always, I have more things to check out and read.
And then you're going to find their podcast. And he does a podcast with a person with a person. It's called Two Bobs. It's amazing. So if you ever need business book advice, unconventional business book advice, you know where to find me.
I'll just email you once a month. Once a month. Hey, what
Pretty
book should
much.
I read next?
Yeah. I would love it.
Jessica, thanks so much for coming on the show. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.